Somewhere right now, someone is opening their investment app on a lunch break expecting the usual nothing. They put in $1,000 last month, same as always. They're bracing for the number that has been moving so slowly it barely registers as movement at all. And then they see something that stops them mid-bite. Their account grew by more than $2,000 last month. They contributed $1,000. The market added another $1,200 on top of it. For the first time in years of doing this, their money worked harder than they did. They sit there for a moment trying to understand what changed. Nothing changed. Not their strategy, not their income, not the fund they picked 3 years ago and have not touched since. The only thing that changed is that they crossed a number, one specific number, where the mathematics of investing quietly switches directions and begins pulling you forward instead of requiring you to push. That number is $100,000. And understanding why that number matters, really understanding it, not just hearing that it does, is the difference between staying in the game long enough to feel it and quitting during the years when everything feels pointless. This is Zane's story, and by the end of it, the math will make sense in a way that no hockey stick chart ever quite managed to explain. The years that feel like a scam. Zane opened his first brokerage account at 26. He had read enough to know what he was supposed to do. Index funds, low fees, automatic contributions, don't touch it. He set up a transfer of $800 a month and went back to his life. A year later, he logged in expecting to feel something. His balance was just over $9,800. He had deposited $9,600 himself. The market had contributed $211. He stared at that number for longer than was probably healthy. $211. 12 months of transfers, 12 months of saying no to things, 12 months of watching friends spend money he quietly redirected into a screen that had rewarded him with the cost of a decent dinner. Here is what nobody explained to Zane before he started. In the beginning, your investment account is not really growing through investing. It is growing through saving. You are the engine. The market is along for the ride, technically helping but contributing so little in absolute terms that its presence feels almost insulting. In year one, Zane's account growth was over 96% came directly from his own paycheck. The compound interest that every chart promises is mathematically present. It's just operating on a base so small that the output barely registers. A 7% return on $10,000 is $700. Impressive as a percentage, invisible as a life change. Why people quit at exactly the wrong moment. Zane almost quit in year 3. His balance was sitting at around $30,000. He had contributed most of that himself through consistent monthly transfers that had required genuine sacrifice. A colleague named Derek had been watching Zane's disciplined approach with mild amusement. Derek spent freely, drove a newer car, took vacations that showed up regularly on social media, and seemed to be living a substantially more enjoyable version of the same salary. In year 3, Zane did the math on his trajectory and felt the specific despair that comes from projecting a slow-moving line into the future. He considered cashing out. He even opened the redemption screen once and looked at it. What stopped him was a calculation he ran almost by accident. He looked at what $30,000 left completely untouched would become by the time he turned 65. At a 7% average annual return, that $30,000 would grow to approximately $230,000 without a single additional contribution. He wasn't looking at $30,000. He was looking at $230,000 wearing a $30,000 disguise. Derek's newer car had approximately the opposite property. It was worth less every month and would eventually be worth nothing. Zane kept the account open. Derek kept the car payments. Here is the concept that reframed everything for Zane, and that almost nobody explains clearly before you need it. At any given moment, your investment portfolio is being powered by two completely separate engines. The first engine is you, your income, your discipline, your monthly contribution, the financial sacrifice required to move money from your checking account into your investment account instead of spending it. This engine is entirely dependent on your ongoing effort. If you stop contributing, it stops working. The second engine is your existing capital, the returns generated by money already sitting in the account, compounding on itself, growing independently of anything you do or don't do in a given month. This engine has a property the first one doesn't. It gets stronger automatically every single year without any additional effort from you, because it's a percentage of an ever-growing base. In the early years, Engine 1 does almost everything. Engine 2 is present but nearly irrelevant in practical terms. But there is a specific calculable point where Engine 2 overtakes Engine 1, where the market's annual contribution to your balance exceeds your own annual contribution, where you stop being the primary driver of your own wealth growth and become for the first time a passenger benefiting from something larger than your own effort. That crossover point depends on what you contribute and what return you earn. If you invest $1,000 a month, $12,000 annually, and your portfolio earns 7%, the crossover happens when your balance reaches approximately $170,000. At 10%, it happens closer to $120,000.
The first $100,000 is not an arbitrary milestone. It is the on-ramp to the zone where Engine 2 begins genuinely competing with Engine 1. It is the mathematical threshold Charlie Munger described when he told people to do whatever it took to accumulate their first $100,000. Walk everywhere, eat nothing that wasn't purchased with a coupon, because he understood that crossing it changed the fundamental nature of the task. He just never explained the math behind why. What the timeline actually looks like. Zane eventually built a simple spreadsheet that showed him exactly how the timeline compressed as his balance grew. At $800 a month and a 7% average return, his first $100,000 took him approximately 7 years. 7 years of consistent contributions, market fluctuations, boring statements, and the persistent feeling that nothing significant was happening. His second $100,000 took 4.5 years. Same monthly contribution, same fund, same strategy. But now, Engine 2 was running alongside him, adding meaningful returns to a base large enough for percentages to translate into real dollars. His third $100,000 took 3.5 years. His fourth took less than 3. Each milestone arriving faster than the previous one, not because Zane changed anything, but because the mathematical architecture of compounding is backloaded by design. The early hundreds are slow because the base is small. The later hundreds are fast because a large base multiplied by even a modest return produces large absolute numbers. By the time Zane's portfolio reached $900,000, his final $100,000, the one that would take him to $1 million, was on track to arrive in approximately 14 months. The same monthly habit that took him 7 years to produce his first $100,000 would produce his last $100,000 in just over a year. He did not get smarter. He did not earn more. He did not find a better investment strategy. The math simply took over. The number that changes if you stop. Here is the part of this story that Zane found most difficult to fully absorb when he first encountered it. Everything described above assumes he keeps contributing every month. But what happens if he stops completely? What if he reaches $100,000, closes the contribution screen, and never invests another dollar for the rest of his working life? At a 7% average annual return, $100,000 invested at age 30 and left completely untouched becomes approximately $1,070,000 by age 65. At 10%, the same $100,000 becomes approximately $2.8 million. From a single milestone, reached once, followed by 35 decades of doing absolutely nothing. This is the rule of 72 made visible. Divide 72 by your expected return and you get your approximate doubling time. At 10%, money doubles roughly every 7 years. 100,000 becomes 200,000, becomes 400,000, becomes 800,000, becomes 1.6 million. Each doubling requires the same number of years but produces twice the absolute gain of the previous one. This is why the timing of reaching the milestone matters as much as reaching it at all. Arriving at $100,000 at 25 instead of 35 produces, at a 10% return, approximately $4.5 million versus $1.7 million by 65. Same milestone, same effort required to reach it. 10 years of difference in timing. The math produces an extra $2.8 million for the earlier arrival. Nobody worked harder for that gap. The calendar created it. Time is the ingredient in this equation that cannot be purchased, borrowed, or substituted, which is why starting earlier than feels comfortable is almost always the correct financial decision. The honest part nobody posts about. Zane reached $100,000 and felt something he had not anticipated. He felt like stopping, not quitting entirely, just easing off. 6 figures in an investment account felt like an arrival, like a destination he had been traveling toward for years and had now reached. His brain, which had been disciplined and deferred and patient for 7 years, began presenting arguments. He had earned a reward. He had proven he could do it. Surely, some of this money could now be enjoyed. This feeling has a name in behavioral finance. It is sometimes called goal completion bias, the tendency to reduce effort once a visible target has been reached, even when the optimal strategy requires continuing past it. And it is one of the most expensive feelings in personal finance because it tends to arrive at exactly the wrong moment. The $100,000 milestone is not a destination. It is the point where the journey finally starts working in your favor. Pulling fuel from engine 2 at the moment it finally has enough base to run meaningfully is the financial equivalent of turning off the car on the highway because you successfully made it out of your neighborhood. Every dollar removed from a $100,000 portfolio at 30 is not a dollar. It is approximately $28 from your 65-year-old self. A $10,000 withdrawal at that stage is not $10,000 spent. It's $280,000 of future wealth redirected into whatever currently feels like a reasonable purchase. Zane understood this intellectually long before he felt it emotionally. Understanding it intellectually was useful, but what actually kept him from acting on the feeling was having written down in a spreadsheet he kept on his desktop, seeing $280,000 on a line labeled current withdrawal amount had a clarifying effect that the abstract principle alone did not. What actually gets you there faster? Here is the strategic insight that Zane wished someone had explained to him in year 1. Before you reach the crossover point, your investment return is almost irrelevant. This sounds wrong. It feels wrong. The entire culture around investing focuses intensely on returns. Which fund, which allocation, which strategy produces the best percentage. But run the arithmetic on a small balance and the truth becomes clear. If you have $20,000 invested and you spend significant time and energy finding an investment that returns 1% more annually, you have generated $200 additional. If you spend that same time and energy finding ways to contribute $200 more per month, you have generated $2,400 in the first year alone. Below the crossover point, your savings rate produces 12 times the impact of your return rate for the same unit of effort. The fund selection is a rounding error. The contribution amount is the entire game. This means the fastest path to the crossover is aggressively simple. Automate the contribution so it transfers the day your paycheck arrives before your brain has voted on how to allocate the money. Choose a low-cost, broad market index fund and leave it there. Watch the fees, because a 1% annual advisory fee sounds trivial until you calculate that it can quietly consume a quarter of your lifetime returns through the same compounding mechanism that was supposed to work for you. And then do the hardest thing, which is to stop checking the account obsessively and let the flat years do their work without interference. The flat years are not a malfunction, they are the price of admission. They are the 7 years Zane spent building a base that now grows faster than he contributes. Most people refuse to pay that price, which is why the crossover is something most investors know exists in theory and almost never experience in practice. Where Zane is now. Zane is 38. His portfolio crossed $250,000 earlier this year. He still contributes the same automatic monthly amount he set up 12 years ago.
He checks the account quarterly. He has not changed his fund selection since he opened the account. He has not tried to time the market, rotate into different sectors, or respond to any of the headlines that have felt urgent and then been forgotten in the years since he started. His monthly investment returns now routinely exceed his monthly contributions. Engine 2 is running. He is, for the first time in his investing life, genuinely a passenger benefiting from something that runs independently of his daily effort. The early years felt like pushing something that refused to move. The years since the crossover have felt like something entirely different, like a current that existed all along, invisible and patient, waiting for him to build enough momentum to stop swimming against it and let it carry him forward instead. The math was never broken during the slow years. It was loading. His job was to still be there when it finished. If this gave you a clearer picture of why the first 100,000 matters and what happens on the other side of it, hit the like button and subscribe to Wetrix Invest, because next time we're going even deeper into the mechanics of building wealth that actually works in your favor, and that's a conversation worth showing up for.